Hello, welcome to Everyday Linux User. Today I'm going to give you a review of Elementary OS. I'm going to start off with the Elementary OS website. And as you can see, the tagline says, the thoughtful, capable and ethical replacement for Windows and Mac OS. So you would think from this that you're going to get a fully featured desktop experience. It's Linux based. The first thing to note is they work off a pay what you can model. So things aren't created for free, so I understand why they'd want people to pay for what they produce. The interesting thing for me, though, is why would you pay for Elementary before you've tried it? If you don't like it, then you've paid without getting what you require. But they do allow you to enter 0 into the amount, and then you can download Elementary OS, and then you could come back at a later time to pay what you think the system's worth, which I think is a fair thing to do. So Elementary OS has got a list of all the new features. You've got an App Center, and the interesting thing about the App Center for Elementary is that a lot of the apps are um, paid for apps, so you have to pay money to get them. There are some free ones, and it works on a curated process. So it says each app has been reviewed and curated by Elementary to ensure a native, privacy respecting and secure experience. We'll get into that later on. There are pros and cons to this approach. The biggest problem I will show you later on. As regards to the desktop, I mean, it's beautiful. It really is a nice desktop experience. The wallpapers are really nice. The user experience is really nice. Yeah, so from a user experience point of view, it's actually really good. Absolutely brilliant. Apps you need without ones you don't. I'll get back onto that later on. So it comes with a complete set of apps, except for one, or two, or even three. So there are apps for most things, but there are some glaring omissions, and it's actually not that easy to install them. I mean, if you were coming from a Windows experience, I mean, if you're a long-term Linux user, then it's obviously quite easy to get this stuff. But if you were coming from Windows, then you might find it a bit trickier. It's got screen time limits, which is good if you want to manage your children's computers or even your own computing time. User-friendly with keyboard shortcuts. We'll get into that later on. Privacy respecting, and then you've got a pay what you can policy for the downloading Elementary OS. Installing Elementary was actually fairly easy. I've got guides showing you how to create a Elementary USB drive and how to install Elementary. It's as simple as using Etcher to burn the ISO to the USB drive, and then the installation itself is fairly straightforward. Select which drive you want to install it to, and then just follow the on-screen instructions. If you follow along with my video, then you should install Elementary quite easily. The only criticism I have is the integrity checks on the USB drive. Seems to take a long time and seems fairly unnecessary. So let's start off with the main desktop. As you can see, the background wallpaper I think is stunning. I mean, I like using my own wallpapers normally, but this really is a nice picture. And if you look at the change wallpaper feature on the right click, they're all great. They're beautifully chosen. You can have a brighter picture. You can have the beach. I mean, that one's not so brilliant, but I mean, really is. It makes your computer feel like it's worth using. It sounds like a silly thing, but it really does look good. So let's have a look at the features. So we've got the wallpaper here in the top right corner. We've got a series of notifications. So you can look at your user account settings. You can go to the lock screen. You can log out, suspend, shut down. You've got notifications, Bluetooth settings, This is where you set up your internet connection. And as you can see, and a series of Wi-Fi connections pop up. And if you want to change one, you just click it and enter the password. Audio settings. Oh, it's just disappeared. There we go. Audio settings, and then microphone settings. Then at the bottom, we've got the panel of applications. These aren't the default set. These are the ones that I've installed myself. But you can basically pin any application you want, and you can remove the ones you don't want. So you can keep it in dock or not keep it in dock, and that will make it appear or disappear. And in the top left corner, we've got a list of applications, and you can search for something you want. So VS Code, and there you can see I've got VS Code. You've got LibreOffice installed. Now, it's worth mentioning a lot of these applications don't come installed by default. So LibreOffice, Kdenlive, Chromium, none of these were installed by default. Microsoft Teams, that's just to prove that you could do it. VirtualBox, none of these come as default. I will show you the default applications later on. So one of the great features of Elementary is this multitasking view in the bottom left corner here. If I click on that, you can see I'm on the screen. I can add another. So I can have calendar open on the screen, and then I can go add another screen, and I'm on a completely different desktop. It's not new to Elementary, but it's nice the way they've done it. So I can have tasks on this window, and I can just flick through them. So calendar here, and as you can see, I can go over to here, this one, and I've got my tasks. So that's quite a nice feature. So Elementary comes with a small set of default apps. You have a calendar, a calculator, a camera, a code editor, a document viewer, file manager, a mail program, music player, photo viewer, screenshot tool, a task manager. You also have a terminal, a video player, and a web browser. So let's look at some of the apps we've got installed. We'll start off with the mail program. You have to connect to an online account. Now, I use Gmail as a mail provider. So in theory, I should be able to enter my email address. And it should connect to my mail provider. Spoiler alert, it won't. It will say could not save the email account. This is a security feature in Google, but it means that, if you're a Gmail user, you've either got to lower your Gmail settings or security settings, or you need to use a different mail app. So cancel that one. So the next thing I'm going to show you is the task manager. As you can see, I've set up a task there to do my tax return at the end of January. It really is simple. Just you can add different lists in, but on my personal one, you just type in what you want and then set the due date, and you can set the location. Fairly basic app. Then we've got the calendar. Again, interestingly, your tasks don't appear in here. So if you want to set up a reminder here, you have to do it separately. So I had to add this task in separately here as an appointment reminder, end of January. But it's a basic calendar app. You've got a music player. I don't know how many people use audio still on their computers as opposed to using streaming services like Spotify and Amazon, but I've got a list of audio files which are just me speaking for the videos, but I can play any of those in here, and you can see I've got recent playlists, and you can create your own playlists. So it's reasonable enough for 2022. I don't know if you need, but if you did, you can always go and install Rhythmbox or something more appropriate. Same with the video player. The default way to play videos is the media player. You can basically open a video file and it will play most video formats. Again, I've only got my own videos installed. I won't play it because otherwise the sound will come through. But yep, it plays MKVs or MP4s or various other video formats without too much hassle. We've got a terminal window. The file manager is probably the next thing to look at. We have a file manager, and as you can see, it's fairly straightforward to use. You've got the folders down the left, you've got the files in the middle. You can change your view to a grid format, a column format, detail format. You've got these tabs, so you can add a new tab, and you can split, you can drag it out, and it becomes its own window for you to work on. Another app that is installed is a Photos app, so you can scroll through your photos. So obviously I've got a lot of screenshots, but I've also got some of my own photos on here of landscapes, etc. From the surrounding area where I live. Nice picture of Harry Moore. It's fairly basic. You can play a slideshow, and you can scroll through. You can have transition effects. You can speed up, make it slower, and you can leave the full screen mode. You can flip the image. You can crop. You can straighten. The sort of stuff you'd expect from a basic image viewer. It's not GIMP by any means, but it's good for just basic image manipulation. And it tells you all the details about that image if you need to know that sort of thing. So that's the photo app. So one thing I wanted to talk about was the App Center. So as mentioned previously via the website, all the apps are curated. So that means that there's a very small selection of apps in the App Center by default. Some of them are free, some of them are paid for, and you can see there's different categories. However, if you want, one thing I noticed that was missing was LibreOffice. There was no video editing apps. There were no GIMP wasn't available. There were a lot of missing apps in the App Center. And the way Elementary prefer you to load these sort of apps, because they're not curated, is to go to the flathub.com website and download the Flatpak and then sideload it via this browser. What I did was installed GNOME Software Manager and installed the Flatpak add-in, and that means that now if I search for something that's not on my computer, like Dropbox for instance, you can see it falls into a section called non-curated apps. So the installing the software manager wasn't too difficult. I had to use this terminal though to use apt to install the software manager, and then I could load in apps either from the App Center here or from the GNOME Software Manager. You could always use apt if you're familiar with it. There is a guide on my YouTube channel showing you how to use apt. Once you've got it installed, however, everything appears in here, so I can search for things like GIMP, and it's now there. It's all under non-curated apps. Now, my problem with this way of working is that if Elementary is supposed to be an out-of-the-box experience for any computer user, then having to go to a website called FlatHub and download APKs and then sideload them via this App Center isn't realistically a good choice for them. I mean, if you're a long-term Linux user, you might find it easy, or if you're a savvy computer user, you might find it easy. But if you're somebody who's not as familiar with computers, you're not going to find this a good experience at all. Now, what I did notice with the software manager, when I do get this error every so often, it doesn't appear to have much effect on the running of the application, and you don't actually need it after you've installed it because everything appears in the App Center anyway. But yeah, the fact that if you want to load the software manager, you have to go into the terminal, use apps to install the software manager, and then everything appears here. Seems like an experience that's too far to go. And similarly, having to go to FlatHub to download the FlatHub packages to sideload them into using this tool is also a little bit long-winded. It would be good if they just had a simple method to say, you know what, if you want non-curated apps, click this button, and then they all appear. Something as simple as that. Other than that, once you've got the software manager installed, everything appears here, and you can install it. It's really easy. So if I wanted to install Glimpse, for instance, it's free. And I can click it and install anyway. It's interesting that they say free, non-free, and you have to click the it doesn't just say download, install. As you can see, on a non-curated app, it actually gives you a warning saying, hey, we haven't said this is good. So it's up to you whether you do it or not. So I'm not going to install that just because I don't need it. Okay, so let's look at some of the settings you can change within Elementary. So the system settings screen, you've got applications. And this lets you choose your default applications. Now, the default web browser you might want to change. I've installed Chromium. Default video editor, I've installed VLC. I really should change the mail program because it's not fit for purpose from my point of view because I use Gmail. You can change the audio player, calendar, etc. You can also set which apps start when you first start your computer, and then you've got permissions for the apps. For the desktop, you can change the wallpaper. Earlier on in the video, I said this is beautiful, and whilst having my own image displayed, this is my own image. This doesn't come with Elementary. The default stock one that is this one. So when you first get Elementary, this is the default wallpaper. As you see, it's that's why I say it's beautiful. But you can choose any one of these as your background. I actually really like the stock image. You can choose dark or light mode, and you can have a schedule of when that's set. So from sunset to sunrise, from 8 till 6, you can have it one and then another depending on. So look, yeah, from 8 till 6 in the morning, it's going to be one thing default, but then it's going to go dark. I assume that's what that means. You can change accent colors, etc. Text size depends on your site, and you can make your experience dyslexia friendly. Docks and panels, dock size, so I can go small like that, and you can gradually get bigger depending on how you like it. That just seems really overkill. This is the default one. You can choose what happens to the dock. So whether it disappears when things go over the top, etc. So as you see, it disappears as soon as I put a screen over the top, and you can change panel translucency. The multitasking, you can have these hotspots. I wouldn't recommend doing anything in the top left or top right because you've got things already up there, but in the bottom left, I've got the multitasking view, so I can click on there and it gives me more workspaces. And on the bottom right, I've got it set to do nothing. Windows move to a new workspace when entering full screen. That's quite a good feature. You've got Windows animations on. You can turn that off if your system is running a bit slow. Next, we've got language and region. These are the same settings that you chose during startup. Language support is not installed. I click that to complete the installation. I'm not sure why I need that. Everything's working. I'm in UK English. Everything's displaying correctly. So it seems like a false positive on the messages. You can adjust your notifications, security and privacy. You can choose how long history is stored. You can set up a firewall. You can determine when locking occurs. Um, there's housekeeping tasks of how long old files are kept in your recycle bins, and you've got location services as well. Displays. I've got one monitor. You can put a night light on, and you've got this scaling factor here. Keyboard lets you choose keyboard shortcuts. Is probably the best one here, and that don't necessarily need to change these keyboard shortcuts. But if you want to know what the keyboard shortcuts are for any particular thing, you can click on that, and it'll help you. A bit later on, I'm going to show you picture-in-picture mode. But yeah, that's the keyboard settings, and you can have keyboard behavior depending on your preferences. Mouse and touchpad the same. You can set the mouse to work depending on your own preferences. Power settings, probably more for laptops than desktops. You can turn off your display after so many minutes. You can suspend the power, suspend if you click the power button or when inactive for a certain amount of time. So printers, for printers, my printer was found automatically as soon as I connected to my Wi-Fi. But if you want to see what the queue's like, set up the page and see the ink levels, etc., print a test page, you can come into there. Sound allows you to set up your audio devices. I was going to skip Wacom because I've no idea what that is. Bluetooth, you can use that to. I've got a Bluetooth speaker, so you can configure any Bluetooth devices via this. You can manage network devices here, so wired, wireless. You can set up VPNs, hotspots, etc. Online accounts, we've seen before. You can link to various online accounts for mail or calendar tasks. Not as fully featured as some things like Ubuntu or Mint, but I'll be honest, it's not a feature I use all that much anyway. Sharing. While disabled, the selected media libraries are unshared. It won't stream your files from your computer to other devices. Does that mean if I turn that on, I can share my music to other devices? I assume it does. It's something I'm going to have to play with. Date and time, obviously, sets your clock. Screen time limits. Now, this is an interesting one. If you've got children that use a computer, you can set when they can or cannot use the computer. You can also set it to, hey, you can use these URLs, but you can prevent them from using certain websites, which is good if your children are known to go to links that you don't want them to go to. Or and then you've got applications, which applications you can prevent people from using. System, that tells you about the version of Elementary you're using and what is built on, the kernel, etc. You can check for updates. You can see the hardware and any firmware. It's worth pointing out my Wi-Fi driver didn't get picked up. I had to install that manually, and it's quite a long-winded process. This, I believe, is to do with the fact that Elementary is built on Ubuntu 2004. When I installed Mint, it picked up the driver straight away, and I think that's because the Linux kernel is significantly newer on Mint compared with Elementary. I think when the next version of Elementary comes along, that problem will be resolved. Universal access is for accessibility settings. So you can have an on-screen keyboard, you can have audio readers, etc. And then you've got user accounts. So by default, I've got my own. I've got a guest session which is disabled, but I can add more user accounts in here, and you can set the account type to different types. and you can change your password, etc. So that's all the settings within Elementary. So the next thing I wanted to show you was picture in picture. So if I go to the files, I can go to videos and I can start one of the videos. I'm going to pause it so it doesn't speak over me. But what I can do now is I don't want it full screen. In fact, I don't want it that size at all. I want it about that size. I'm going to close my file manager. But if I press the Windows or Super key and F, it turns my cursor into a crosshair and I can select the bit that I want to be in picture. And you can see it goes in the bottom left corner. Now, if I go to a brand new window, it stays there. So if I've got a video playing, I can have that video playing on every single workspace within that tiny little window, and it's a good way of watching videos or having something present on the screen at all times. Doesn't matter which workspace you're working in. So let's summarize my experience of Elementary. We'll start off with the installation. Installation, good, easy. The integrity check-ins are a little bit annoying, especially if you end up having to use the USB drive multiple times. Imagine you had to install Elementary on 20 computers and you had the integrity check on each one. Now, I will show a way of skipping that integrity check, but it's not something the average user would do. And for if you're only installing it once, it's probably not worth the effort. So installation good. The desktop experience wonderful. The styling, the graphics, the displays, wallpapers, etc. Everything's very, very nice. The default apps are installed. They're curated, but they're basic in nature. There's almost certainly a better app available than each of the ones that is installed on Elementary. For instance, mail programs. Thunderbird is going to be far better than the mail program installed here. Evolution is going to be better. For graphics programs, Shotwell, VLC for videos, you've got audio players, Rhythm Box should be installed. So curated apps, they're very basic, but they're kind of lightweight as well. So do you need Rhythm Box in 2022? Do you still play music from your PC? If you do, then Rhythm Box is the sort of thing you should go for. With regards to that, there was no Office program installed, and if you went to the App Center, there are no Office programs available. To install Office programs, other applications that aren't in the App Center, the recommended way is to go to FlatHub and download the Flatpak and then sideload them via the App Center. My recommendation is to install another software manager. In my case, I installed GNOME Software Manager, and then all those apps appear in the App Center under non-curated apps. There's good features. The screen time limits are good, especially if you want to, if your computer is multi-use and you want your kids to be limited to what times they can be on, what applications they can use, and what websites they can visit. That's a good feature. The picture-in-picture is a nice little novelty. If you want to watch a video and you want to flick screens, etc., that's good. All in all, Elementary is a good operating system. Once you've got all the applications you want installed, and you get rid of the ones you don't want, and you are able to install what you want, then it becomes incredibly useful. But out of the box, I don't think it is perfect for certainly new users who are coming from a different operating system and don't necessarily know Linux that well. So that's my review. Feel free to comment, tell me I'm wrong on certain things and what I should be doing. but this is my experience. I'm acting as if I am a new user or I am an everyday computer user. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, click the like button. If you want to see more videos, click the subscribe button. And thank you for watching. Goodbye.